Hey FA Nation, Justin Fensterman back with you with another Fantasy Football Stock Watch report as we're right at the end of Week 13, heading to Week 14 of your fantasy football season. Let's get right to the players, some that are trending up and down when it comes to their production potential moving forward. Let's get right to the action. First player on the rise, Russell Wilson. A few weeks ago, Wilson was being benched in a lot of fantasy leagues when the Seahawks matched up against the Cardinals, and it looked like his injured hand wasn't fully recovered. He has since silenced his doubters over his last 2 weeks, and after completing less than 54% of his passes in weeks 10 and 11, Wilson completed over 81% of his passes in week 13 versus San Francisco. After not throwing multiple touchdowns since week 4, he's now thrown 2 touchdowns in back-to-back weeks, and he's thrown for at least 230 yards in both contests. The Seahawks' run game is a mess, and it can't be relied on, as Seattle has this by-committee approach led by Adrian Peterson, and they'll have to rely on their passing attack a bit more down the stretch in order for them to stay in games. Up next on the rise, Van Jefferson. Between Robert Woods being lost for the season and Matthew Stafford playing better overall, Jefferson's production ceiling has risen over the last few weeks. Jefferson commands the second most targets on the team. He's received at least 21% of the Rams' targets over his last 2 matchups. Jefferson has received no fewer than 6 targets since week 7. He hit double figures in PPR in 4 of his last 6 contests. Jefferson has caught a touchdown pass in both of his last 2 matchups, and after the Rams game versus the Cardinals, they have a favorable schedule that includes the Seahawks, Vikings, and Ravens. Jefferson has posted at least 40 receiving yards in each of his last 6 games. Final riser, Russell Gage. Matt Ryan has zeroed in on Gage for the most part over the Falcons' last 5 games. Cordero Patterson is utilized in both the Falcons' rushing and passing attack, and Kyle Pitts has been held down. Gage has received a bigger percentage of targets than Pitts in the Falcons' last 3 games. Gage has received at least 24% of the Falcons' targets in 4 of his last 5 contests. He's caught 22 passes total in his last 3 games on 23 targets. Gage has produced 62 receiving yards or more in 4 of his last 7 outings. While he does have a couple of games during that stretch in which he produced 0 fantasy points, Gage has been getting fed the targets, receiving 7 or more in 3 straight games, and he just caught 11 passes for 130 yards against the Buccaneers. Now for players trending down, Noah Fant. Fant averages 16.5% of the Broncos' target share for the season, but he's only exceeded that number 1 time in his last 4 games. After hitting double figures in PPR in 4 of his first 6 games of the season, Fant has scored 10 or more points in PPR once in his last 5 contests. He hasn't caught a touchdown pass since week 6, and Fant has caught fewer than 5 passes in 3 of his last 4 games. There are just a lot of passing options in Denver, including Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, who they just paid, and Tim Patrick. Let's not forget that both Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams can catch passes as well, and that could take away from Fant even more. Up next, trending down, Christian Kirk. If we look at Kirk's target share for the season, he's the top dog among Cardinals options. And yes, we know DeAndre Hopkins was hurt for a portion of that time. Kirk hasn't caught a touchdown pass since week 7, and he's caught just 3 passes total in his last 2 games. Kirk caught 1 pass in the Cardinals' last matchup against the Rams, and next week Hopkins will be even healthier unless he has a setback in practice, and we saw Kirk out on the field for a season-low 60% of the Cardinals' offensive snaps on Sunday, losing out to Hopkins, A.J. Green, and Zach Ertz. Final faller, Carson Wentz. Wentz had an incredible run from week 4 until week 9, in which he threw multiple touchdown passes in each game. Since week 10, Wentz has thrown more than 1 touchdown pass in just 1 game. He's thrown for fewer than 200 yards in 3 of his last 4 battles, and we've seen him throw more than 22 passes 1 time in his last 3 games. Jonathan Taylor has been receiving heavy volume lately, and that will certainly take away from Wentz's production. The Colts have a bye in Week 14 and then have dates with the Patriots and Cardinals after that, which of course won't be easy matchups for Wentz. That is your latest fantasy football stock watch report as we head to the playoffs. Keep it locked into fantasyalarm.com. Remember, a family that sticks together wins together. We're going to help you get there.